Thank you, everybody, for giving those introductions. Like I said, we're going to be hearing from Alex Stoll from Qualia today. He is the Senior Manager of Customer Success Operations, and he has a great story for us today about how Qualia, which was a very tight-knit company culture that loves sitting next to each other and learning from each other, how they navigated having to go to remote work and how Guru came into the picture then. So we're going to learn a ton from him. We already have heard from everybody here, but if you're interested in dropping your favorite thing about the fall season in the chat, please go ahead. We always want that knowledge. We always want to know more about you, right? Like I said, we're going to hear from Alex. We're going to learn from him about, his tips and tricks to how to roll out Guru, expand Guru within your company, how to get people to fall in love with Guru, really. And then we're going to be able to have some Q&A time and group discussion time to talk about what you guys are currently focused on at each of your companies and how we can use the practices that Alex shared today to work through those and level up your Guru instance at your company. This is the time breakdown. I think we started at 2:30, so we're a little bit in a different, segments here, so don't worry about this at all. And before we get into it, I just wanted to give you guys some background. We'll be sending out these slides, and Chris and MTIs will likely drop a few links in the chat for you. But if you are interested in also sharing your Guru approach, then we have plenty of opportunities to spotlight you within this community, and we'd love to team up and learn more about what you're doing. You can also go and learn from Guru specifically about how to use Guru in the Guru Academy. And we have a ton of different video recordings from previous events, from different speaker talks. We've teamed up with people from Square, Looker, Yext, SalesLoft, and Cardit to talk more about how they use Guru and how they expand knowledge at their companies. So that's always a resource for you to check out as well. And then if you are interested in going to the next Guru deep dive, it's going to be specifically about extending Guru with Guru's API. And so that's going to be a great one. MTIs is leading that. And so definitely add that to your calendar, check it out. We're going to be working with Airtable for that session, and they're going to share what they did to use Guru's API. And it's going to be a good time of swapping knowledge. I think mostly everybody in here is in the Guru community already, but if you know anybody at your company, somebody that you used to sit next to maybe, but is now your like Slack best friend, make sure that they are in the Guru community, because as Diana said, it's the place to be. And we want to make sure everybody is able to get as much of their questions answered and value out of it as possible. And we announced this a few weeks ago, but if anybody hasn't seen this yet, make sure you check this out. We now have a card template gallery. So if you've ever been in a situation where you're sitting there looking at your blank Guru card being like, ugh, where do I start? How do I format this? Like, what information needs to go where? We all know blank Guru cards can be intimidating. So we figure, why not start you off with a template so you know exactly what to fill in where. And we worked with a bunch of Guru champions at these different companies you see here, Noom, Slack, FreshBooks, Saros, and everybody contributed some of their best and most used templates, which is awesome. So definitely go check that out. And actually, that's a good segue into what we're going to be. Oh, actually, never mind. I have another segue in the middle, but this is just a reminder that we have plenty of opportunities to share your story. If you want to submit your favorite card template to be featured in the gallery, if you want to share your approach at another Guru the Gathering or deep dive, we are always here to listen and learn from you. And you'd be surprised if you feel like you're not actually far enough in your Guru journey that you should be to share your story. We really believe that everybody has a valuable perspective to share, and it's really our job to help you share your knowledge with others, and so we're here to do that. But what I was saying before about the card templates, we recently did, and you maybe have seen it in the community, a case study partnership with Alex. And so we captured a little bit about Qualia's story and journey with Guru. So they have their own card template in that case study that's available and will be sent to you guys after. But what we wanted to do today was really dig into that story and have Alex speak to everybody in this community about how Qualia navigated remote work, what happened with Guru, all of the awesome best practices that he created along the way, because he has a a really great story that really relates to a lot of people out there. So I will stop talking now. I'll pass it off to Alex. And thank you so much for joining today, Alex. And as you can tell from the smiling faces here, it's not just me that is eager to hear from you. So thank you again for telling us your story today.
Thank you, Callie. Go ahead and go to the next slide there. All right, so I'll give you guys a little bit of background about what Qualia does, where we are as a company. So Qualia is a title closing software. So we work with title companies. So if you've bought a house and you've had to sign vast documents of paperwork, you usually work with a title company to finish your closing. So the title companies work with buyers, sellers, lenders, and realtors to bring the whole closing process together. So our software helps power and fuel that. So as you can imagine, it's a very complex industry. It's also an old kind of archaic industry where they just didn't have good software until Qualia came on board. We were the first cloud-based solution that actually was launched. So a lot of our customers are coming from like Prentech servers, and this is a very modern software. And so the software is very complex because it's also very regionalized. So every state has different requirements. They have different paperwork, documents, and then also down to like a county or city level as well. So there's a lot to know about Qualia, not only as like a high level software, but then like getting more nitty gritty on a regional basis. Qualia is right now sitting at about 300 employees. We're about a 5-year-old company at this point, and then about 200 users are using Guru. So the Guru users that we have are support, sales, onboarding, CSMs, and marketing. So basically every customer-facing team. The only teams that we don't have in Guru right now are product and engineering. As you can imagine, they use things like Stack Overflow and Google Docs for a lot of their documentation and tracking. But we originally rolled it out on support. I'll give you guys more of that background of that story here in just a couple slides. Applications that we use on a day-to-day basis: Salesforce, CRM. We do use Slack, SalesLoft, Gainsight, Service Cloud, DocuSign, TalkDesk. So we have a pretty hefty tech stack that we maintain, and Guru is also now one of them, which is one of actually the least maintenance required system. So once we got it set up, after maintenance, it is not a big time suck for us, which is also another reason why we really like Guru quite a bit. So a couple of members of my team are actually on the call. We have Sarah, who is actually our deal desk function, and then Grace Scott does our customer engagement. But I also manage our general ops, so reporting, dashboards, building workflow process, automations, etc. That all rolls to me as well. And then my role is just managing all operational efforts in the CS org at Qualia, which consists of 9 different teams, from support to account directors to onboarding to CSMs and renewals. So a lot of teams. It's never a boring day in our roles. Something new always comes up every day. So there's always a lot going on. All right, go ahead and go to the next slide. So back in March, when we were moving to a work from home environment, we had a support team that was pretty young in their tenure. Our support team is about 35 people today. And we use that as like our talent pool. So it's a constant revolving door in a positive way, where we pluck and pull talent from that team. So whenever we open a new role internally, we always touch base with that team to help build culture and promote people and give people career pathing. So that team is always pretty light with their knowledge, and we do what we call a brain drain every couple months, where we're like, oh, we got a bunch of new positions open. Okay, now we're going to move 5 to 8 people out of that team, and then hire and backfill, right? So we're constantly having to like retrain and knowledge people. And so we had documents that lived all over the place. We had them in Google Docs, we had them in Slack, we had them just in our heads because we never wrote them down. And when we moved to work from home back in March, when COVID really hit, our VP of CS was really concerned that we weren't going to be able to train, ramp, and get information to people in a reasonable amount of time. And so we started talking about like what systems we wanted to use and how we wanted to build a data depository, is what we called it internally, where we could have all living, breathing documents in like one centralized location, and that they could be searched, right? So it's hard to search Google documents, because you can't look for like keywords. Slack can also be a bit hard to search through. And there's just not one central location where all our documentation actually lived, which made it very hard for new support reps to be able to effectively and efficiently respond back to customers in a reasonable amount of time. We also had constantly repeating ourselves or providing the same information over and over again. So when we were in the office, we strategically place new hires and mix them in with like older reps, so that they can distribute the knowledge evenly. So if you had a case that you were working, you're like, I don't know what to do, right? You had your buddy next door to you that you could tap on the shoulder and say, hey, like, where can I find this information? Or, hey, like, can you help me consult on this case? So we were constantly like repeating ourselves over and over again, and people were kind of relying on each other to like give answers instead of like going and doing the research themselves and finding the information they need. And then we had sales information that was in certain place. CS had their own documentation, and then marketing had their own content library that was actually a Google Excel sheet. And so again, like there was just no way to easily share information across the board. Like some people had access to certain things. Yeah, Google has crazy permissions, and so it was just hard to like keep all information up to date, share it easily, and then promote it. So we kind of had information in la la land, and it wasn't very concise or streamlined, which is one of the biggest reasons why we brought on Guru. Operationalizing knowledge. So consolidating our knowledge in a one-stop shop was the best answer for us at any given time. Being able to provide that universal search feature where somebody could go and like look up the word accounting, right? And it'll pull up any article that ever talked about accounting, whether it was in the support collection, if it was in the marketing collection, or if it was in our knowledge base. That we actually set up an API connection with and push all of our knowledge base content into Guru. So again, as like a support rep was looking, like they have like their internal stuff, and then they also have external knowledge for the customer, so they can find answers and be able to share links with our customers very easily. Keeping content up to date. When we actually launched Guru, we realized how much content was out of date because nobody was going back and double checking this information. And it was, these documents that were created 6 months, a year ago, that people just kind of reused and recycled, and nobody ever validated the information was actually correct or up to date. And then what people are searching for and can't find, and what they're looking for now. So it just helps us keep all of that information housed in one place through operationalizing our internal knowledge for this. Our support team now has like over 700 pieces of cards available. So they have a lot of content, and they have, set up different users across the support team to verify content every 3 months is what we have it set at today. And so the SMEs and the more tenured people have really taken a pride in making sure that content is up to date and verified every so often to help with ramp times and just ensuring that we're telling the customers the right things. Since we implemented Guru, our support team has actually seen an increase in response time or decrease, depending on how you want to look at it. But we were able to actually eliminate our first response time on our support team. We cut it in half, which is tremendous, right? So we looked at the times for first response time before and after we implemented Guru. And notice a huge decrease, meaning that we were able to get answers out to customers in a much quicker time using first response time. So just having all of that knowledge in one place, that was a huge win for us to be able to respond to our customers very quickly. I think that's a huge metric that a lot of other companies can relate to. And so having the knowledge and information readily at your fingertips is the way to do it. I think that having the extension populated as well. So, if they're working in Salesforce on Service Cloud and they're working on a case, right, they just pull out that extension. They don't even have to leave Salesforce application to find the answer. So it's really made their workflow process much easier. Grace just made a comment about the API lifesaver. So our knowledge base is being housed in a WordPress site. So again, think about like having Google Docs, Guru, like knowledge base, all like open tabs in your system. Having all of that knowledge base articles gets pushed into Guru in real time. So as soon as Grace updates an article and saves it, it pushes into Guru. So that information is always up to date as well. So I love the universal search feature because it will tap into any collection depending on the category that the support rep is looking for. I'll also say another big win has been on the operations team. Something that we didn't do a great job on was documenting process, right? We're so busy building things and maintaining things and fixing things that we just didn't ever document any of our process. But now that we have more members on the team, we've gone back and updated a lot of like our internal operational process. So we have a whole like client success operations collection now where people can figure out how to like submit a deal desk request or like what kind of approvals are needed if you want to change your contract. And so it cuts down a lot on Sarah having to manage cases or manage like one-off Slack messages, which are very distracting throughout the day because now people have like a place where they can go and read like step-by-step directions on how to submit different things. So Sarah, I think, has taken a lot of stress off of her plate, just having like a consolidated knowledge base where people can go and find documentation for internal processes. So those were our wins. I just mentioned the first two. The other one is ramping new hires. I think there was a quote from our VP in the case study that we did with you guys about how this has significantly reduced new hire ramp time. Like I said, we have like over 700 cards in our support collection. So it's just a lot of information to always know. And I'm sure not one person's read every single card, but the information is there. And Sarah was on our support team actually before she joined over on the operational side. So she got to test out Guru for a few months before she moved over to our team. And, she talked about how great it was to be able to access this information and then, share that information easily with new hires as they came on board and sharing links around where they can see the information very easily. So it cut down our ramp time by a couple of weeks. And that couple of weeks is huge on our support team, especially when we're constantly like promoting people from that team. We need as fast as possible ramp time that we can do. So learning and growing tips. So when we first launched Guru, this was only meant for our support team. Like we didn't have really any desire to roll this out to all the other teams. And it kind of spread like wildfire internally. So we bought our initial set of users from Guru. We rolled out to the support team, and I'll go over some of the tips and tricks for that. And then other members across the org started hearing about this Guru product. They're like, what is this Guru? What is this Guru? So then I found myself internally like doing demos with different managers and different teams. So some of it was with some of the CSM managers, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. I love this. I love having all of our content in one place. Like, this is great that support content is here, knowledge base is here. Like, how do I get access to this? And so we kind of slowly started rolling it out under the CS and did the CSMs and then the onboarding team. And then we have accountants that do accounting for our customers. That team is like a 20-person team, and they're, again, like hiring a ton of people because that product's really taking off. And so they needed a one-stop shop to place that. And then our marketing, there was an individual in our marketing team, Travis, who had heard about Guru through the grapevine, and just so happened to be that one of his OKRs for the quarter was to find a better solution that was more scalable to house all of our marketing content. So him and I spent some time together. I showed him all the ins and outs of Guru. He really loved the analytics piece and knowing like what cards are people looking at and like what terms are people searching for that are not returning any cards, so they can also build content around that. So now marketing has access to see like, okay, are people searching for like certain case studies that we just don't have? Are they looking for, like one pagers that aren't there? And like now we can actually see that through the analytics and we can see what cards are doing really well. But our plan when we initially rolled this out for the support team, I didn't want to take on the task of having to go scour through all of the systems. I just didn't have the time to do it. And I was very honest with our VP at the time. I was like, hey, I can implement the back end, but I'm not going to be in charge of trying to go collect all this content because there's just so much out there with Qualia. So we gathered our support SMEs, and I trained them on how to create cards, went over some best practices, but we really identified some strong individuals that really wanted to make this worthwhile. And we sent them out to go start creating all the collection and card. So we wanted to do a crowdsource type of solution, which I think really, really was a great benefit because it took off all the work off of my team from having to create the cards, and it gave the support team the power to create it and organize it and customize it the way that they wanted to and the best way that they see fit. So within like a week, I think that they had over 500 cards complete, just between like 4 individuals, which is huge. And then now it's grown to, over 700. So I think as you're rolling out Guru, especially if you're like bringing on new departments, is identifying that one key power user or group of power users that will like go to town and just go collect all the information. So when we rolled out to marketing, we did the same thing. Travis on our marketing team was like, I'm going to go, gather the troops and assign out task. And so that's what he did. And they were able to get all of their information by dividing and conquering, I think within like a week. And they moved all of their content library out of a Google Doc and then into Guru. So very quick turnaround time if you can get everybody bought in and on board. Another thing that we did that we discovered is like people were still accessing Google Docs even after we rolled out Guru. And I went through and I started turning off sharing access to all these Google Docs and retiring them so people can access them, which was important. So we kind of forced them to go through Guru. So I think it's important that if you're rolling this out, you can draft things in Google Docs, but once you move it over to Guru, like either delete the file or like turn off access to it. Because the longer you keep those open, the more that people are going to rely on those and share those, and you want to like kind of force people into Guru. So I would say as you start moving content over, force people over to using that system. Having multiple verifiers set up. So this is important, I think, more on like our support team and is our marketing team. So we set up multiple verifiers for certain cards. So we bucketed people into different groups. So if like the SMEs and the support reps that are specialized in those categories, like those are the verifiers of those content. That way it's not like one person is responsible for verifying all of the cards in any given time because, 3 months comes up and there's like 100 cards that have to be verified, right? So I would strongly encourage you to find people that can verify the information and not leave it to one single person. So we've done that on the CS team as well. So Sarah usually will go write the card, she'll have me verify it, and then she'll set her and I to verify the card in 3 months. So if I can't get to it, she can, and then vice versa. So we can always stay up to date with verification because I think people get a little scared when they see a card hasn't been verified in a while. And then buy-in from other teams. I think, my enthusiasm for Guru and what it does and the ease of use was very evident every time I talked to somebody because I just got like super excited about how easy it was, how great it was. So making sure that you kind of spread that wildfire and that love for Guru with other team members and be that support mechanism to get them through some ideas really, I think, set the tone for everybody else when we were trying to bring on other teams is just to get excited about it and talk about Guru in a very highly positive manner. Next slide. Oh, I think we're at the end of our slides now.
Awesome. Wow, Alex, thank you so much for going through all that. I saw quite a few nods and smiles. So I think that some of the things that you said really resonated. And I think from the way that you guys use Guru to like streamline the experience of a new hire to how your teams work together to even like how you can build new habits as the team grows and evolves is really awesome to hear. And definitely uh, it sounds like such a worth it process, right? One of the questions, anybody else can go first, but I figured I have a good one to kick us off. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you, the way that you just walked us through that story, everything sounds like very, very, like it all came together and it was the right thing at the right time. recently we did a session with a CX leader from Brooklyn and who was talking about the imperfect pieces of her story, where she's like, yes, we came a lot further than where we started, but the whole time it kind of felt like things, maybe weren't falling into place. So throughout that whole process, what was one of the biggest like roadblocks you felt like you had to overcome as a team, and how did you navigate that?
I think a couple of the roadblocks that we initially ran into was like, you can see that our tech stack is very like robust, and that's just like the tech stack on the CS team. That doesn't include all of the tools that our sales team or marketing team uses on top of that. So one of the biggest roadblocks and hurdles is like, this is another system, this is another tech stack. We already like are using Google Docs, like we're putting along with this, like it works fine. Like, why change a process if it's not considered broken? And so I think that was one concern when I had our initial conversations with our sales ops leader. She actually had no interest in like doing Guru. She's like, I don't have the time to implement this. I don't want to touch it. Like, it's not broken. Like, we're not going to fix it. And so that was one of our biggest hurdles, was just kind of getting people comfortable with this new system and like rolling it out. And so when she told me no, I went to marketing and got them really excited about it, and then it kind of like forced other teams into it. So that was one hurdle that we went over. I think I get a lot of questions.
How does the sales ops leader feel about that now?
She actually is really excited about it. They like having all of the documentation. I think she's a very she loves reports and analytics, and so now that she has the guru information of like who's accessing certain things, like she really likes that. So she's completely bought in now. It just took us going around her to do so. But
did she get bitter about that at all?
I think once marketing was like, hey, we're gonna do the groundwork for you and kind of the legwork, and we're gonna like crowdsource it from our side, is when she was much more bought in for it.
I ask in part because I introduced Guru at the previous organization, like I mentioned. I'm in the process of gaining some buy-in here. I brought the idea to my current manager, who's in charge of engagement operations, we call it. She's like, oh, not another thing. I'm like, yeah, okay. And I mean, I already sort of like know how the story plays out. So right. I'm thinking I sort of want to go around her, but not, so it's a delicate dance.
It is a delicate dance. And like, I didn't want to push our sales ops leader to like do it. I was just like, hey, like, this is what the CS team is doing. Like, do you have any interest in like hopping in on this? I think this could be like a great like tool we like roll out to all the teams, so everybody's on the same page. And like when marketing kind of sparked their interest, they were like, oh, sales has got to have this. Like, there's no way that like marketing can use it, so we can't get sales like to use it. So I actually worked with marketing on like the business case for like marketing and sales to use it.
Yeah, I mean that was your pushback. I get so fed up with these things. Like, what's the business case? What's the use case? I've made up memes from like Taken, like, I don't know, who you are, but I'll find you and create you a business case kind of thing. Right. And, and those have like gone viral, like, what's the business case? What's the use case? It's like, I don't know.
These memes that you've created, I love memes, especially around like operational like questions and stuff like that. Other than that, like, we didn't really have any other roadblocks. There were some individual teams that like were like super gung-ho and fired up about it, that like were like, yeah, we're gonna go create content, and then I like looked like weeks later and they haven't like created any cards really. And so there's like one-off teams here and there that haven't really pulled the trigger. But the more information that you put in there and the more that you like share those links around, I think it'll just kind of slowly adopt across the org as well.
Yeah. Let me know if anybody else has another question. You can jump in. But one of the things that I was curious to hear, so seeing that you guys were able to decrease your time to first response by 50% is huge. And that is like a big goal of a lot of people in the community, right? And one of the blockers to that, especially when you are hiring a ton more support agents, is getting them warmed up and like used to Guru. So what does enablement around Guru look like for a new support team member at Qualia?
Yeah, that's kind of a loaded question. So we have a very vast onboarding process here at Qualia. So the first 2 weeks when you get brought into Qualia are all done through industry training. You get put in like your new hire class with any other role that could be across the org. And then once you get out of that, you start getting kind of settled into your role. And so on the support team, we have a very well thought process around training people from how do you like answer cases to phone calls, and like they do things as groups. And so what they do during the training process is, as a case comes in and it looks complex and complicated, they show them how to use Guru, and they're like, okay, like here's the case, here's like what the customer's asking for, let's use like Guru now to like search for the answers on that. And they like do these like in live real time as like a group for the new support folks. And so then they'll hop into Guru and they'll kind of start tinkering around with like keyword searches to find potentially the answer. And so that's how they show them how to couple Guru into their workflow on like, hey, if you don't really know where the answer is, like rely here first before you go slacking people one off or like pinging like the support channel for answers. So they're really trying to make them self-sufficient and showing them like, where they can go find the answers and not have to rely on other people for it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, that sounds awesome. And that sounds like it helps somebody click with it right away, right? Diana, Sarah, Grace, any other questions? Imtiaz? Cool.
I've got one if there's time.
Yeah, Paul, go ahead. I should have called on you too. Sorry about
that. So a thing that I've been thinking a lot about, when I take another shot at this here in my new role, is the concept of prestige, which I know is something that came up somewhere in the Slack, in the Guru Slack like a while ago, something that the product teams were researching. And, I think over time, I've probably seen some evolution in the web application as it pertains to whatever the output of their research and work has been, right? Just this like concept of prestige, like rewarding, like what is the reward for adding knowledge, for getting knowledge in there? And so I guess I'm curious for Alex or for Guru or for anyone else, like what does, what have some of the results of that study been, and how do you think the concept of prestige plays into operational effectiveness? Prestige is a funny word, it's like a loaded word, I think.
I think that's really interesting, you asking that, Paul, because, at Qualia, it's really easy for us to celebrate monetary wins and like a deal closing, but like, how do you socialize and draw attention to the success of someone doing that? That's something I care about, because I'm responsible for our knowledge base at Qualia, and it's like, unless someone's saying you're doing a good job of it, it's kind of like, why would I take time out of my day to contribute? So
yeah. It's funny too, because literally yesterday we had a team meeting where we were talking about this. There's a woman on our team named Julia Safa who runs our like Guru on Guru strategy, making sure our team is using Guru to the best of the ability, right? And what she talked about and has been talking about for a while is building knowledge into like your team's goals, your team's OKRs, so that you're actually accountable at like a company-wide level to reach that, and then you can be celebrated for it. And it sounds like with the story, Alex, of Travis and marketing, that was already a natural fit, and that's kind of why like it worked out with marketing and spread that way. But for us, we're very conscious of like building that culture of instead of prestige, I'm thinking clout, like this is like something like that. But if you have your collection is like the most verified and has the most adoption rate, and you can speak to your analytics, there is more clout you get among the group just because we are Guru. But I know that has to be something that's intentionally built in other places. So yeah, interested if you have anything to add, Alex, there. But it's definitely a constant reminder and work in progress, and building it in at the highest level possible helps.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been meeting with one of the Guru CSMs once a week over the last month, and he's been giving us some great tips and tricks. But one of his was creating like a Guru like internal counsel, and so like you define like the metrics that you want to like track, right? So it starts from the top down, and like we like put accountability there. then hopefully it will be successful. So, making sure that like each collection has, 90% verification rate at any given time. And so how do you identify each collection owner that will then like hold those people accountable and making sure that they're done? And then like adding more content and, every so often. So like, what is our goal for like content on like a support team? And so who can we delegate that to and help them get that created? So that way there's new stuff flowing in as the application expands. And so those are some of the things that we're working through right now as around accountability and designating certain individuals to constantly creating new content, verifying it.
Do you have councils in addition to the Knowledge Council?
What do you mean by that?
So for example, at HMH, we had an architecture review board, which was primarily IT and engineering. And they were looking at things from a very IT and engineering perspective. Like the creating governance outside of the org chart is like a tricky thing. So do you have, is this the only artifact or like living artifact of governance outside of the org chart, or are there other examples in Qualia?
I don't think we have other examples. Do we, Grace? Do you know? No, I don't think we do. We get the information from, our product team on releases, and then we, start building content around that. So, Grace takes product releases and works with the product team, starts building the knowledge base articles, which then flow into Guru. And then more of the nitty gritty stuff of like how to troubleshoot like a feature or anything like that will then be built by the support team. And so there's kind of different tactics that we use to, for external facing clients and then internal facing information as well around what information we want to provide.
Thank you, Alex. So it looks like we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm just going to transition us and kind of open up the floor. If there are other things on your mind that you want to bounce off the group about related to Guru, the way that your team is adopting it, the way that you're enabling your team around it, now is the time to talk through any of those current challenges or blockers and get advice, right? So originally when we were setting up the discussion for today, I figured, and I hear a lot in the community, people talking about that new hire process, and for Qualia with Guru starting there and getting that really streamlined, and just like Alex walked us through the whole process of somebody who's onboarding, that was a big thing that also made a big difference within the organization. So totally open to wherever you guys want to take this, but if new hire onboarding is on anybody's mind, we can start there and chat through, where you're feeling friction at this point in your organization and try and work around it for you.
I'll keep going. So the organizations that I've implemented Guru in are both HMH is like 180 years old. ASCD is like 75 years old. I always get the sense that it's like harder to bring these kinds of tools into, institutions with more sort of like baggage, but I don't necessarily know that that's true. Like Alex or whomever, do you think that it's easier being a younger company? And if it were more institutional, how would you do things? Like, what would you change?
I think for us, because we are kind of the cutting edge technology of like the title closing experience right now, like our like senior leadership is more willing to like invest in technology and new systems that help efficiency. We've only been around for 5 years, where HMH has been around for like 100+ years, so they're probably a little bit more set in their ways than we are. As a fast growing like kind of tech startup, like my team can probably testify to this, that we're constant changing and pivoting as we grow and experience new business challenges. So for us, we can be a little bit more nimble because we are smaller, which means that we don't have to go through as much, I think, internal politics to get stuff done right now. And who knows, maybe that'll change in a couple of years. But I definitely do think that it could be, industry driven as well, from like what industries people are in on getting this across the line.
Yep.
Yeah, I just to add to that, I think I'm thinking about my two lives ago when I worked in the corporate world in New York City. It was a company that had been around for forever. It was a Fortune 500 company, but like a mammoth size organization that it would be really hard to implement Guru. I like to think about like what that would look like for a company. It sounds like maybe HMH Paul is in a similar vein where it could have been tough to break the ice. Because a lot of people hoard knowledge and that's their way to career advance. How do you know about markets and customers and clients? And you kind of you take that knowledge and you hoard it because then you can use it at the right times for your advantage. It's how I saw the operation kind of working. And so to spread that out would be scary for folks. I think people would be like, I don't want to give that up. That's my bread and butter. I'm out here networking. I'm out here, making these presentations that I hold sacred. And so I've thought about this quite a bit, and I don't know if there's any one right answer, but I like to think of it as like a grassroots movement. I think Alex touched on this, but if you find one person or two people that want to latch on, double down there, and make it really great. And then, to Grace's point, think about how, how can you broadcast the awesome stuff about your knowledge base to people in the company that, is kind of undeniable and feels really like compelling. And it's like, hey, we're doing things a little differently here. And, these are the results we're having. So I think if you can do that, some of those numbers and some of those facts will speak for themselves. Easier said than done, but I think that grassroots kind of mentality in an older organization could be a way to
yeah. Well, it worked. It worked at HMH. And we got far enough. And I'm my own worst critic. We didn't finish, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I mean now we're in the area of like subscription SaaS economy. You know what I mean? So there is no sort of like, oh, now we got everyone using it. It's like, did we make good use of the tool? Yes. Would I have liked to have done more? Yes. Would I like to do more here? Yes. So, but yeah, maybe it'll never be everyone or everything.
That's interesting the way that you said that too, MTIs, about like the grassroots movement or people being used to like holding that knowledge close to them, and then that's kind of their clout within the organization. When Guru comes into play, it completely switches, or when it works really well and spreads like wildfire, it switches because that person is looked to as a leader when they share their knowledge successfully, and so they're there to like enable other people around it instead of just like holding in that information themselves. I guess like I wonder what you guys would say like at Qualia with all of the shifts that you've been through, with all of the changes within the last several months. I think you were telling me about this a little in our case study before, Alex, and I'm sorry, I just like lost the way that I wanted to word the question. But basically, do you think that there has been a culture shift now that you guys brought Guru on board? Obviously you went remote, and so it looks a little bit different. But if you're not able to sit next to each other, tap each other on the shoulder more, where is your culture at with how you look at knowledge and value knowledge and use knowledge in your day-to-day?
I think at Qualia, like knowledge is power. And, like we have invested a lot of money and like making sure not only our internal employees have the knowledge they need to service our customers, but we have also put a lot of investment in doing that with our customers too, and like training them and getting them up to speed. One of the biggest reasons why we brought Grace onto the team was to focus on customer engagement efforts and work on Qualia University and work on our knowledge base and educate our customers. So we put a lot of emphasis on that, just both internally and externally, because we know that the industry can be very complex and confusing. And how do we become like a market leader in the space? And we have like the technology and the product, right? But like also like thought leadership wise, our knowledge base, I don't mean to brag or be biased, but I think it's one of the best knowledge base like out of all of our competitors that I've seen, because we've done such a great job and invested the time and energy in making sure that it's up to date and clean. And it's really hard to do that. Before we had Grace on the team, it was kind of like a crowdsource thing where like knowledge base articles kind of got created, they kind of got edited, nobody like really owned it. And so like having like sheer ownership of somebody like going through it and updating it and like reviewing it on a regular basis goes a really, really long way. And so I have a lot of respect for our leadership team that they're willing to invest in those resources, because I think that's an area where a lot of companies really miss out on, both internally and externally with customers. And so having those resources needed go really a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that thank you for that answer, Alex, because it's paints such a good picture of the ripple effect, right? Of like when knowledge is power and you commit to sharing that knowledge, like that leads to more empowered employees as well, more empowered leadership, more empowered employees, and then what I was going to say is more empowered customers as well. So thank you so much for that. And I think like we have about 4 minutes left, so I'm going to wrap up here unless anybody else has anything on their mind that they want to talk about. We do this thing where we count down like 7 seconds here. So if anybody else has anything to share, let me know. But if not, you can always find us in the community, Slack, any questions that you have. We'll be posting a recap card of Alex's talk with some video clips too of the most juicy parts, I would say, which is might be a long video because I enjoyed all of it. But thank you guys so much again for coming. I'm going to click through the last few slides here to just remind everybody about all of these links again. You heard Alex talk about this of how they hooked up their knowledge base using the API to streamline the way knowledge got into Guru. And so if you're curious to learn more about how that could work for you at your organization, you know, write it down, save the date on your calendar. Imtiaz is going to be talking about that and diving into how Airtable does that as well. So don't miss the next Guru Deep Dive. And also don't forget to hit us up on Slack in the community. Chris, Eli, Imtiaz, and I, we're always here to learn more about where you're at, what you're doing, where you're stuck, how we can help, and get your feedback specifically on these types of events. Diana really filled us in this morning or earlier in the hour about how she's enjoyed deep dives and stuff, which is awesome. We love to hear that. But if you have any feedback on what else you'd like to see out of the community, these user group meetups that we do, we are creating these all for you, with you. So any feedback goes a long way. But thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope that you have a great rest of your day. And I'm wishing you verified knowledge and high adoption and trust scores. That's how we say goodbye, Guru. All right, have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.